The security footage showed everything. A woman in a torn designer coat slamming her fists against the glass doors of Harlow Construction at 2:47 a.m., begging to be let inside. The night janitor, Logan Pierce, froze with a mop in his hand, his 6-year-old son asleep on a folding cot in the break room behind him. He didn't know her name yet. He didn't know that the black SUV circling the parking lot belonged to men who'd already killed twice that week. He only knew that if he opened that door, his quiet life was over. He opened it anyway. If you're watching this story right now, drop a like and tell me in the comments what city you're from. I want to see how far this story travels tonight. Stay with me until the very end, because what Logan Pierce does in the final 10 minutes is going to stay with you long after the screen goes dark. The fluorescent light above the time clock had been buzzing for 3 weeks, and nobody had fixed it, because nobody except Logan Pierce worked the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift at Harlow Construction's corporate office. He punched in at 9:58, the way he always did, and pulled the crumpled schedule out of his back pocket to double-check the floors. 3rd, 5th, the 12th floor executive suite, which the cleaning crew left for him because nobody else wanted to mess with Marcus Harlow's glass desk. "Dad!" Logan turned around. His son Eli stood in the doorway of the break room in Spider-Man pajamas, hair sticking up in the back like a rooster tail, one sock on and one sock off. The kid held up a juice box. "It won't open." "Come here, bud." Logan crouched down, pinched the little foil tab, and peeled it back. Eli took the box and climbed onto one of the plastic chairs, feet not quite touching the floor. He was small for 6. The doctor said he'd catch up. Logan didn't worry about it out loud because worrying out loud was one of the things that had driven Rachel away 3 years ago, and he'd sworn he'd learn the lesson even if it killed him. "You finish your homework?" It was a worksheet. I drew a dog on the back. "What kind of dog?" "A regular one." Logan smiled, which was a thing he only did when Eli was around, a thing that had become so rare in the other parts of his life that his coworker Dennis once joked that Logan's face might crack if he tried it. Logan had not found that funny. "You need to be asleep by 10:30. "It's only 10:12. You've got 18 minutes. I'm not negotiating." "You always say that because you always try." Eli sucked down half the juice box in one pull and stared at the ceiling tiles like he was trying to count them. Logan stood up, stretched his back, and looked at the clock on the wall. Mrs. Alvarez, the woman who usually watched Eli on the night shifts, had called at 7 with a fever of 102 and a voice like wet gravel. Logan had said, "Of course, feel better, don't worry about a thing." And then he'd hung up and stood in his kitchen for 3 full minutes staring at the empty refrigerator, trying to calculate whether he could afford to call out of a shift. He couldn't. Not with Eli's school tuition due on the 15th and the transmission on the truck making a sound like a handful of pennies in a blender. So he'd packed a duffel bag with Eli's pajamas and a toothbrush and the half-finished dinosaur book they were reading together, and he'd driven to the job site with his kid buckled into the passenger seat, eating dry cereal out of a plastic cup. It wasn't ideal. It wasn't close to ideal. But the break room had a couch and a lock on the door, and Eli thought sleeping at Dad's work was basically the coolest thing that had ever happened to him. "All right," Logan said. "Cot's made up. Teeth." "I already did." "Do them again." "Dad? Do them again, or no dinosaur book tomorrow." Eli grumbled, but slid off the chair and went. Logan watched him go, that skinny little back in the Spider-Man shirt, and felt the thing he always felt when he watched his son walk away from him. A pressure behind the sternum, somewhere between gratitude and terror, the feeling of holding something breakable in a world that kept dropping things. He shook it off. He had floors to mop. By midnight, he'd finished the 3rd and 5th floors and was riding the service elevator up to 12. The executive suite was empty the way it was always empty at that hour, all the frosted glass offices dark, the receptionist's desk abandoned with a coffee mug still sitting on the blotter. Logan pushed his cart down the hall toward the conference room, whistling something tuneless under his breath, when the freight elevator at the end of the corridor dinged. He stopped whistling. The freight elevator did not usually ding at midnight. The doors opened and a woman staggered out. She was maybe 29, maybe 30. Dark hair, wet, plastered to the side of her face. She was wearing one heel. The other foot was bare and streaked with something that might have been mud or might have been blood. Logan couldn't tell from 30 feet away. Her coat, which had once been a very expensive camel-colored thing, was torn at the shoulder. She was holding a leather portfolio against her chest like a shield. She saw him and froze. Logan said, "Ma'am, this floor is closed." She didn't move. "Ma'am, are you security?" Her voice was lower than he'd expected. Not shaking, not pleading, just low and tight, like someone who had been taught since childhood that showing fear in public was a professional failure. "I'm the janitor. I need to get into Marcus Harlow's office." "Yeah, that's not happening." She took a step toward him. Logan instinctively took a step back and put his hand on the edge of the cart. He wasn't afraid of her. She was maybe 120 pounds soaking wet, which she nearly was, but his son was 3 floors down, and his son was the only thing on earth he was ever afraid for. "Please," she said. "I work here." "At midnight?" "I have an ID. Let me show you, but ma'am, you need to go back down to the lobby and call the front desk. They'll send somebody up." "The front desk is the problem." Logan looked at her. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. She just stood there in the hallway with her hair dripping onto the carpet, the portfolio clutched against her ribs, and something in her face. Logan would think about this later, turning it over in his head the way you turn a stone in your palm. Something in her face cracked for just a second. It was like watching a wall shift. And then it was gone, and she was composed again, all hard edges and corporate posture. "Fine," she said. "I'll go." She started walking, fast, toward the stairwell. One heel, one bare foot, a staccato click-thump, down the carpeted hall. Logan watched her for 3 seconds and then said, against every single instinct he had cultivated over 32 years of careful, disciplined living, "Hey." She stopped without turning around. "What's your name?" A long pause. "Aria Bennett?" Logan frowned. He knew that name. He didn't know why he knew that name. He cleaned this building 5 nights a week, and he'd seen the names on the glass doors of the 12th floor offices 100 times, but his brain refused to pull the file. "You really work here?" "I'm the chief strategy officer." Logan blinked. "Of Harlow Construction?" "Yes." "You're the—" "Yes." He looked at the bare foot. He looked at the torn coat. He looked at the wet hair. His brain did some very fast arithmetic, the kind of arithmetic a man learns to do when he's been supporting a child alone for 3 years and can no longer afford to be wrong about people. "Ma'am, are you in trouble?" She turned around, just her head. Her eyes met his across the hallway, and for a second Logan forgot to breathe because there was something in those eyes that he recognized. And he didn't want to recognize it, because it was the same thing he saw in the bathroom mirror at 5 a.m. after a 12-hour shift. "I'm fine," she said. "You're not fine." "I'm fine." "Lady, you're wearing one shoe." She looked down. She seemed for the first time to actually register the state of her own body. She looked back up at him, and a tiny, tired, absolutely exhausted smile tugged at the corner of her mouth for about 1/10 of a second before it vanished. "I suppose I am." Logan stood there with his hand on the cart and his mop bucket full of dirty gray water and thought about his son, 3 floors below, asleep on a folding cot with a plastic dinosaur tucked under his arm. He thought about the rent that was due on the 18th. He thought about Marcus Harlow, a man he'd never met but whose desk he'd polished with lemon oil every Tuesday for 9 months. A man whose framed photograph sat on a credenza beside a photograph of a woman who looked, Logan now realized with a dull, lurching feeling, exactly like the woman standing in front of him. Oh no. "You're his daughter," Logan said. Aria's face went blank. "He's my father." "Okay," Logan said, mostly to himself. Okay. I need to get into his office, and I can't get into his office because I left my badge upstairs and— She stopped, closed her mouth, started again. "I left it somewhere, and I can't go back and get it. And I need something out of his desk, and I need it in the next 20 minutes. Ma'am, I can't let you—" "I know. Like, I'd get fired. I'd get fired tonight. I can't—" "I know. My son is in the break room. I can't lose this job." It came out before he could stop it. He hadn't meant to say it, hadn't meant to tell her anything, and he watched her face absorb the information, and something happened. Her shoulders came down about 1/2 inch. The knuckles on the portfolio whitened, then loosened. "How old?" 6. "What's his name?" "I'm not telling you my kid's name in a hallway at midnight." She almost laughed. It was a rough little sound, not happy at all. "That's fair," she said. "That's very fair." She took a breath. She looked at the stairwell. She looked back at Logan. "Forget I was here," she said. "What?" "Forget I was here. I'm going down the stairs. I'm going to walk out the loading dock. You didn't see me. Can you do that?" "Ma'am? Can you do that?" Logan stared at her. The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere in the building, an HVAC unit kicked on with a distant thump. He thought about Eli. He thought about the 18th. He thought about a woman with one shoe asking a stranger for a favor she had no right to ask. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I can do that. Thank you. But if somebody's hurting you, I need you to tell me now, because I have a kid downstairs, and if somebody comes through that lobby looking for you, I need to know whether to lock the break room or whether to call 911. She went still. The portfolio in her arms seemed suddenly to weigh 1,000 pounds. "Nobody's coming here tonight," she said. "I promise." "Are you lying?" "Yes," she said quietly, "but only a little." And then she was gone, click, thump, down the stairwell, and the door clicked shut behind her, and Logan Pierce was alone in a hallway on the 12th floor of Harlow Construction at 12:07 in the morning, holding a mop, with his heart pounding in a way it had not pounded in 3 years. He stood there for a long time. Then he rode the elevator down to the break room to check on his son. Eli was asleep with his mouth open, one hand clutching a plastic triceratops, the other flung over the edge of the cot. Logan stood in the doorway and watched him breathe for a full minute before he turned off the overhead light. Then he went back upstairs and finished mopping the 12th floor because he needed this job, and because he had told a woman he would forget her, and because forgetting something was easier when your hands were busy. He did not forget her. He thought about her on the drive home at 6:15 in the morning, the sun coming up over the interstate, Eli still asleep in the passenger seat with his cheek mashed against the window. He thought about her while he was making pancakes. He thought about her while he was walking Eli into the second-grade classroom at St. Catherine's, where the tuition was $240 more per month than he could technically afford, and which he paid anyway because Rachel had gone to street. Catherine's and Rachel had made him promise before she left that their son would get the education she'd had. He thought about her in the shower. He thought about her while he was trying to sleep. He thought about her at 2 p.m. when he woke up and made himself a peanut butter sandwich because peanut butter was $4 a jar and fed a grown man for 5 days if you rationed. And then at 4 p.m., the phone rang. "Is this Logan Pierce?" "Yes, sir." "This is Gerald Keene from Harlow Construction Human Resources." Logan's stomach dropped through the floor. "Yes, sir. We need you to come in early tonight before your shift starts. 6 o'clock. Is there a... 6 o'clock, Mr. Pierce. Thank you." The line clicked. Logan stood in his kitchen with the phone in his hand and the distinct, unavoidable awareness that he was about to lose the only job he'd been able to hold down since the accident. He'd been fired before. He'd been fired from the shipping warehouse in Tulsa for missing shifts during Eli's hospitalizations. He'd been fired from the line cook job in Wichita because the manager was a drunk and Logan had refused to cover for him. He knew what "come in early" meant when it came from a Gerald Keene. He packed Eli's backpack for Mrs. Alvarez's place. He drove across town. He dropped his son off at the little blue house with the garden gnome in the yard, and he kissed the top of his son's head and he said, "I'll pick you up in the morning, bud." And Eli said, "Can we get donuts?" And Logan said, "Yeah, we can get donuts." And then he got back in the truck and drove to Harlow Construction with his hands shaking slightly on the wheel. He was escorted to the 12th floor, not the HR office, the 12th floor. Gerald Keene was waiting in the executive suite, standing in front of the frosted glass door that had Marcus Harlow, CEO, etched across it in small silver letters. Gerald was a small man in an expensive suit with the kind of face that looked like it had been ironed flat by 30 years of delivering bad news. "Mr. Pierce." "Sir." "Come with me." They did not go into Marcus Harlow's office. They went into the office next to it, the one with Aria Bennett, Chief Strategy Officer, etched on the glass in the same silver letters. The door was already open. There were 2 men Logan didn't know standing against the back wall with their arms folded, and there was Aria herself sitting behind the desk, wearing a cream-colored sweater and a pair of reading glasses, her hair pulled into a knot at the back of her neck. She looked like a completely different person than the woman he'd seen in the hallway, except for her eyes. Her eyes were the same. "Mr. Pierce," Gerald said, "please have a seat." Logan did not sit down. Arya looked up at him over the reading glasses. "Hello, Mr. Pierce." "Ma'am?" "Please sit." He sat. "Thank you, Gerald," she said. "Gentlemen, could you give us the room?" Gerald blinked. "Ms. Bennett, I don't think—" "Give us the room, Gerald." The three men filed out. The door clicked shut. Arya took off the reading glasses and set them on the desk and leaned back in her chair and looked at him for a very long moment without saying anything. "You thought you were being fired," she said finally. "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" "Because when a Gerald calls you and tells you to come in early, you're being fired." She smiled. It was not a big smile, but it was real this time, not the flickering thing from the hallway. "Mr. Pierce, I am not going to fire you. I'm going to do the opposite of firing you." "Ma'am, I'm going to pay you a great deal of money in exchange for a thing I need you to do." Logan sat very still. "I'm going to be straight with you, Ms. Bennett, because I am tired and I have a 6-year-old son and I do not have the patience for anything that sounds like it might be illegal?" "Yes. It's not illegal. It's embarrassing. Those are different things." "Respectfully, ma'am, sometimes they're the same thing." She laughed. It was a short, surprise sound, as if she hadn't expected to laugh and had been caught off guard by it. "Fair enough," she said. "Let me explain." She stood up. She walked to the window. The sun was setting over the city, and the glass was catching the orange light, and for a second she looked, in profile, like the photograph on Marcus Harlow's credenza. She did not quite match it. The photograph was of a smiling young woman at a sailing club. The real woman at the window had the posture of someone who had been awake for a great many more hours than she'd admitted to. "Last night," Arya said, "my fiancé and I had a disagreement." "Okay." It was a significant disagreement. It involved the discovery of certain financial irregularities in the holding company his family owns, irregularities I had been tracking for several months and had finally assembled into a portfolio of evidence. When I confronted him about it, he became, let's say, unreasonable. Unreasonable how? She didn't answer right away. "He took one of my shoes," she said. "While I was trying to leave the apartment, he grabbed my ankle. The shoe came off. I kept walking." Logan's hands, resting on his knees, closed into fists. "Ma'am?" "I'm fine, Mr. Pierce." "Did you call the police?" "No." "Why not?" "Because the portfolio in my hands last night was worth, conservatively, $400 million in federal securities fraud charges against a man whose father sits on the board of this company. And if I call the police before I hand that portfolio to the right people, the portfolio disappears and I disappear with it. Professionally. Possibly literally. His family has a great deal of money and a great deal of patience." Logan stared at her. "So why are you telling me this?" She turned around from the window. "Because I had nowhere to go last night, and I came here to put the portfolio in my father's safe, and I couldn't get through the lobby because I was not presentable, and I took the freight elevator, and you caught me, and you let me leave." "Yeah. You didn't have to let me leave." "I know. You have a son downstairs, you said." "I had a son downstairs. He wasn't in the office tonight." "But he was last night, and you let a stranger walk out anyway." Logan shrugged. He didn't know what to say to that. It had not felt like a large thing last night. It had felt like a small thing, a person with one shoe, a hallway, a choice. "Ms. Bennett, call me Arya. We're going to be spending some time together." "Ma'am?" "Mr. Pierce." "Okay, Arya. What do you want?" She walked back to the desk. She sat down. She folded her hands. "I want you to let me pretend to date you." Logan blinked. "I'm sorry?" "For 6 weeks." "Ma'am?" "Arya." "Arya, what?" 6 weeks. Publicly. Visibly. Enough that the tabloids pick it up, enough that my fiancé understands the engagement is finished, enough that his family's lawyers don't have grounds to claim I broke the terms of our prenup by abandoning him in bad faith. Because the prenup has a clause, a very clever clause his father's lawyers wrote, that says if I end the engagement without cause, I forfeit the trust that funds my half of this company, which means I lose my seat on the board, which means the portfolio in that safe disappears into a drawer somewhere and nothing happens to anyone. Chamchiman.
Why me?
Because you're the last person on earth anyone would expect. Because you have no connections to his world, which means he can't blackmail you, because there's nothing to blackmail you with. Because you let a strange woman walk out of a building at midnight without asking for anything in return. And because I have spent my entire adult life surrounded by men who would have asked for a great deal in return, Mr. Pierce, and last night was the first time in a very long time that a man looked at me in a hallway and treated me like a person instead of a commodity. Logan sat there. His mouth was dry. How much? How much what? How much money? $300,000. He did not move. In an escrow account, half on signing, half when the 6 weeks are up. He did not move. Mr. Pierce? I'm thinking. Take your time. He took his time. He took about a minute and a half, which was the longest minute and a half of his life. He thought about his son. He thought about St. Catherine's. He thought about the transmission on the truck. He thought about Rachel, who had died in a car accident on I-44 3 years ago, who had not left, the way he sometimes told people because leaving was a less complicated story than dying, and who had made him promise that Eli would have everything he needed. He thought about a woman with one shoe. He thought about a life he had built out of routines, out of double-checked schedules and crumpled lists and back pockets, out of never ever saying yes to anything that wasn't necessary. No, he said. Arya blinked. No? No, ma'am. I appreciate it. I do. I appreciate the money, but I have a son, and he doesn't understand fake. He just understands what he sees. And if he sees a woman around our house for 6 weeks, and then she disappears, he's going to ask questions I don't want to answer. He's already got one parent who disappeared and isn't coming back. I'm not doing that to him twice. Arya stared at him. Mr. Pierce, Logan, I'm not going to disappear from his life if he doesn't want me to. That's not part of the arrangement. Ma'am, Arya, with respect. That is exactly what happens in these arrangements. People say they won't disappear and then they disappear. That's what adults do. I know because I'm an adult and I've done it and it has been done to me. She looked at him. She looked at him for a long time. And then she did a thing he did not expect. She reached up and took off the knot of hair at the back of her neck and let it fall down around her shoulders. And in that small, unguarded gesture, he saw, for the second time in 24 hours, the woman from the hallway. The one with the portfolio and the wet hair and the eyes. Logan, she said, Ma'am, I have been running from this man for 5 months. I have been pretending in front of my father, in front of his family, in front of the entire board of this company, that I am a calm and rational woman who is marrying a man she loves. I have been smiling at dinners. I have been showing up at charity galas. I have been posing for photographs. And last night at 11:48 p.m., I caught him on the phone with a broker in Zurich moving $14 million into an account that is not going to appear on any tax document that his family's accountants will ever file. And when I asked him about it, he told me that I was going to forget what I had heard. And when I said I wasn't going to forget it, he took my shoe. Yes. Ma'am, let me finish. Okay, I am not asking you to pretend for me. I'm asking you to give me 6 weeks of cover while I burn down a man's career and secure the thing my father has worked his entire life to build. At the end of 6 weeks, you will have $300,000 and you will never have to see me again. Your son will never meet me. Your house will never meet me. I will take you to 4 public events, 4 over 6 weeks, and the rest will be photographs in front of a coffee shop and a dinner reservation at a restaurant where we will be photographed arriving and departing and nothing in between. You will spend less time with me than you spend mopping the 3rd floor of this building in a week. And at the end, you will have enough money to put your son through college. Logan did not move. Your son will never meet me, she said again. Arya. Yes. Can I think about it? Yes. 24 hours. Yes. Okay. He stood up. His knees were shaky, which was embarrassing. He made it to the door. Logan? He turned. She was still sitting at the desk with her hair down, looking very small and very tired in the cream-colored sweater. And for the first time he noticed a faint bruise on the inside of her wrist, just below where the sweater's cuff ended. I'm sorry I lied to you in the hallway last night. You said you only lied a little. I lied a lot. I lied a lot, and I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. Logan stood in the doorway with his hand on the frame. It's okay, he said. I've had worse nights. I bet you have. Take care of yourself, Arya. You too, Logan. He walked out. He rode the elevator down to the lobby. He walked across the parking lot to the truck, and he sat behind the wheel for a full 10 minutes without starting the engine. And then he turned the key and drove to Mrs. Alvarez's little blue house to pick up his son. Eli was at the kitchen table eating a bowl of cut-up strawberries. Daddy. Hey, bud. You said donuts tomorrow. I did say donuts tomorrow. Can we have donuts now? Logan looked at his son, at the strawberry juice on his chin, at the tiny hands holding a tiny spoon, at the uncombed hair and the Spider-Man shirt, which was the only shirt Eli wanted to wear this year, and which Logan had bought two of so that he could wash one while the other was on the kid's body. Yeah, he said. Yeah, we can have donuts now. They drove to the 24-hour donut place on Baker Street. Eli got a chocolate one with sprinkles. Logan got a coffee he didn't drink. They sat at the little orange booth, and Eli swung his legs under the table and talked about a kid named Jacob who had stolen his pencil at recess. And Logan listened and nodded and said, "That's rough, bud," and thought about $300,000, and thought about 4 public events, and thought about a woman with a bruise on her wrist who had promised his son would never meet her. He did not sleep that night. At 6 a.m., he sent a text message to the number on the business card Arya had pressed into his hand on the way out of her office. Okay. 6 weeks. But we need to talk about the terms. The reply came back in under a minute. Dinner. Tonight. 7 p.m. I'll send the address. Logan set the phone face down on the kitchen counter and looked out the window at the sun coming up over the houses across the street, and somewhere in his chest, a thing he had not felt in 3 years began, very quietly, to turn over. Not hope, exactly, because he did not trust hope, but something adjacent to it, something heavier and more dangerous. The kind of thing a careful man teaches himself not to notice, because once you notice it, you have already let it in. Upstairs, his son was asleep with a plastic triceratops under his arm. Logan poured himself a cup of coffee he was not going to drink. He sat down at the kitchen table. He waited for the day to begin. The restaurant was the kind of place Logan Pierce had driven past 100 times without ever noticing. Tucked between a dry cleaner and a closed-up bookstore on the east side of downtown, no sign out front, just a brass number on a black door. He stood on the sidewalk at 6:58 with his hands in the pockets of the one suit jacket he owned. A gray thing Rachel had bought him for her cousin's wedding in 2018 and which had hung in the back of his closet ever since, and tried to remember the last time he'd been in a restaurant that required a reservation. He couldn't. That was the answer. A woman in a black dress opened the door before he knocked. "Mr. Pierce?" "Yes, ma'am." "This way, please." She led him through a small foyer into a dining room that was about half the size he'd expected, maybe 8 tables, low candles, a jazz trio playing in the corner without any of the affectation Logan associated with jazz trios. Arya was already seated at a booth along the back wall. She stood up when she saw him, which surprised him. She was wearing a dark green dress and no jewelry, and her hair was down, the way it had been at the end of the conversation in her office. And Logan found himself thinking that she looked tired in a way that expensive lighting was failing to hide. "Logan, ma'am." "Arya. Arya, sorry." "Sit, please." He sat. The hostess set a menu in front of him. He opened it. There were no prices. He closed it. "I can't read this menu," he said. "Why not?" "There's no prices. I don't know how to order when there's no prices." Arya almost smiled. "I'm paying, Logan." "I know you're paying. That's not the point. It's a control thing. I like to know what I'm agreeing to before I agree to it." She tilted her head at him for a second, and then she waved the hostess back over and said quietly, "Could you bring us the menu with the prices, please? He'd like to see the prices." The hostess, to her credit, did not react. She took the menu back and returned 30 seconds later with a different one. Logan opened it. He looked at the price of a piece of fish. He looked up at Arya. $48 for a piece of trout. "Yes." "Ma'am." Arya. For $48, I could buy a case of trout and feed my son for 2 weeks. Logan, I am not asking you to buy the trout. I am asking you to let me order the trout on your behalf. We are in this restaurant because no one on the 12th floor of Harlow Construction comes to this restaurant, which means our conversation tonight will not be reported to my father by 8 a.m. tomorrow. The trout is incidental. Okay? Okay. Okay? I'll have the trout. The hostess, who had been pretending to study the wine list on the wall, turned around smoothly and took their order. Arya got a salad, Logan got the trout, and a glass of water. When the hostess left, Arya set her hands flat on the table and looked at him across the candle. You said we needed to talk about the terms. Yeah, I had my lawyer draft a contract this afternoon. It's in my bag, but I'd rather we talk first because the contract is going to say whatever you and I agree to tonight, and I don't want you signing something you don't understand. Appreciate it. Tell me what you want. Logan exhaled slowly. He'd spent the entire afternoon between loads of laundry and a parent-teacher conference phone call with Eli's homeroom teacher, rehearsing this speech in his head. None of it came out the way he'd practiced. First thing, he said, my son doesn't meet you. I already agreed to that. I want it in writing. It'll be in writing. Second thing, I'm not sleeping with you. She blinked. Then to his surprise, she laughed. A real laugh this time. A sharp little bark of it that turned two heads at a nearby table. Logan, I'm paying you $300,000 to walk me into 4 charity events. I'm not paying you for that. I know, I'm just saying it, because people are going to assume, and I want to be clear that the assumption is wrong. It's wrong. Good. Third thing? Third thing. If this blows up, if your fiancé figures out it's fake, if the tabloids dig into my background, if someone decides to harass my kid at his school, we stop. Today. No questions, no waiting it out, no convincing me to stick around for the rest of the 6 weeks. We stop, and you pay me whatever fraction of the 300 we're at, and we walk away. Agreed. You didn't even think about it. I don't need to think about it. Your son's safety is non-negotiable. If any part of this touches him, we end it. I will sign that in blood if you want. Pen's fine. She smiled. It was a tired, small smile. She reached for the water glass in front of her, and Logan noticed, again, the faint bruise on the inside of her wrist, a yellow-green smudge just visible at the cuff of her sleeve. She saw him notice. She did not pull the sleeve down. Logan respected her for that, and then hated himself for respecting her for it, because there was no universe in which respect was the right reaction to a bruise on a woman's wrist. What happened to your fiancé? He asked. She set the water glass down. Which part? The part where you said he was going to be a problem. Oh. She paused. His name is Ethan Whitlock. His father is Douglas Whitlock, who owns about 14% of Harlow Construction's preferred stock and sits on our board. Ethan and I have been engaged for 11 months. The engagement was arranged in the sense that my father introduced us at a fundraiser and made it very clear that I should find him interesting. And I did, for about 6 weeks. After that, I stopped finding him interesting and started finding him intolerable. But by then there was a ring and an announcement in the business section and a wedding planner in Napa, and it became, let's say, inconvenient to change my mind. But Ma says, that's not a reason to marry somebody. No, it isn't. But I'm 31 years old and my father has had 3 heart attacks in 4 years. And I'm his only child. And Ethan was the son of the man my father trusts most in the world. And my father wanted to die knowing the company was in family hands. And I wanted to give him that. So I told myself I could do it. I told myself a lot of things. What changed? I told you. Last night. No, I mean before last night. Something changed before last night. You said you'd been tracking financial irregularities for 5 months. You don't track someone's bank accounts for 5 months if you think you're going to marry him. She looked at him across the table for a long second. You're smarter than you look, Logan Pierce. I'm not smart. I'm just tired. And tired people notice things. Fair. She took a breath. 6 months ago, she said, I found a spreadsheet on his desk. He'd left his office unlocked and I was looking for a pen. The spreadsheet was a list of vendors. 42 vendors, all of them billing Harlow Construction for services rendered on the Meridian Tower project. I recognized about 9 of them. The other 33 I'd never heard of. I took a picture of the spreadsheet with my phone. I went home. I spent 3 nights going through our accounts payable department's records. 31 of those 33 vendors did not exist. They were shell companies. They were billing us for work that was not being done. And every invoice, when I followed it back to the signatory, had been approved by Ethan. All How much? Across 18 months? $41 million. Logan put his fork down. $41 million? $41 million. Into where? Accounts I couldn't trace, which is how I knew it was serious. Ethan is not clever enough to hide $41 million on his own. He has help. Sophisticated help. Which is why the portfolio I was carrying last night took 5 months to put together. And why I can't just hand it to the police, because if I hand it to the wrong police officer in the wrong precinct, it vanishes, and my father has another heart attack, and I lose my seat on the board, and Ethan walks into my father's office the Monday after the funeral and takes over the company. Your dad doesn't know? My dad knows something is wrong. He does not know what. I have been protecting him from the specifics because the specifics would kill him faster than the cardiologist can, and I need him alive long enough to sign the paperwork that makes me CEO when he retires next spring, which he will not sign if I break off the engagement without, and this is the precise language his cardiologist used last month, without an orderly and dignified transition. So I'm the orderly and dignified transition. You're the thing that gives me cover while I arrange the orderly and dignified transition, which is a grand jury in the Southern District of New York, a sealed indictment, a federal arrest that happens on a Tuesday morning in his office without advance warning, and a press release from my father's desk by Wednesday noon expressing the company's shock and full cooperation with authorities. If that happens in the right sequence, my father stays alive, the company survives, and Ethan does not get to take a single dollar of Harlow money when he goes down. And me. And you walk away on Saturday of week 6 with $300,000, and I never contact you again. The food arrived. The trout was $48 worth of trout. Logan ate it, and it was, he had to admit, a very good piece of trout. They did not talk for a while. The jazz trio played something slow. Aria pushed her salad around her plate and ate about half of it and kept looking up at him across the candle with a kind of careful, measured attention that Logan was not used to being on the receiving end of. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "Why did you really say yes? To the trout?" "To the 6 weeks." Logan set his fork down. He thought about it. "My son's school," he said. "St. Catherine's. It's $240 more a month than I can afford. My wife, Rachel, she went there before she died. She made me promise. And I have been paying that $240 a month for 3 years by cutting other things, and the other things are running out. I've got maybe 4 more months before I have to pull him out. And he doesn't know. And I don't want him to know. And $300,000 means I never have to have that conversation with him. Ever." Aria was quiet. "Your wife died." "Yes, ma'am." "When?" "Eli was 3. So 3 years ago, give or take." "How?" "Car accident on I-44. She was driving home from her sister's place in Joplin. It was raining. A semi-jackknifed, and she went off the shoulder into a culvert. She was pronounced at the scene." "I'm sorry, Logan." "It's all right." "It's not all right. I'm still sorry." "Thank you." She was looking at him differently now. It was not pity, exactly. Logan had seen enough pity in 3 years to recognize it and steer around it, and this was something else. It was closer to recognition, like she had been looking at a stranger and now she was looking at a person. "Rachel," she said. That was her name. "Yeah." "Does Eli remember her?" "Pieces. He remembers she smelled like oranges. He remembers she sang him a song about a frog. He remembers she had a scar on her thumb from a dog bite. He doesn't remember her voice, which is a thing that bothers me because I couldn't find a video with her voice clear enough to show him, and I've been looking. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard." She looked down at her plate. She took a long breath. "Logan, I'm going to ask you something that I need you to answer honestly." "Okay. Are you saying yes to this because of the money, or because you feel sorry for me?" Logan looked at her across the table. "Ma'am, with respect, I do not feel sorry for you. I think you are a very rich woman in a very bad situation, and I think the bad situation is partially of your own making because you agreed to marry a man you didn't love for reasons that sound reasonable at 31 and will sound like excuses at 41. I think you have more money than most people will see in 10 lifetimes, and you have used almost none of it to buy yourself a better life, which is a thing I find genuinely baffling. And I think if I weren't broke, I would have told you no yesterday, and I would have gone home to my kid, and I would have slept better tonight than I am probably going to sleep tonight. But I am broke, so I'm saying yes. For the money. Not because I feel sorry for you. He stopped. Sorry. Don't be sorry. That came out harder than I meant it to. It came out exactly as hard as it needed to. She was almost smiling again, that tired, small smile. Nobody has talked to me like that in about 8 years, Logan. I've been told I have a problem with tact. No, you don't. You have a problem with dishonesty. Those are different things. I prefer the first one. The contract came out of her bag. It was 4 pages. Logan read every word. He asked questions about 2 of the clauses. Arya crossed out one of them with a pen and initialed the change. They both signed. She slid it back into the folder, and then she slid another envelope across the table toward him. What's this? Your first payment. You said half on signing. It's half. I don't need all of it tonight. Logan, take the envelope. He took the envelope. He put it in the inside pocket of the gray suit jacket, and for the rest of the dinner, and for the drive home, and for the rest of his life, he would remember the weight of it there pressed against his ribs. She did not make him sit through dessert. She paid the check. They walked out to the sidewalk. It was raining, a thin, cold drizzle, and she stood under the awning of the restaurant with her arms folded against the chill. Our first event is Thursday, she said. A cocktail reception for the Children's Hospital. I'll have a suit delivered to your house on Wednesday. I'll have a car pick you up at 6. Can you be ready at 6? Yes. Do you need me to arrange childcare for Eli? I can pay Mrs. Alvarez extra. I can pay for a different sitter if you prefer. How did you know about Mrs. Alvarez? Arya went very still. Logan, how did you know about Mrs. Alvarez? I had a background check done on you this afternoon. Jesus. I'm sorry, it's standard. It's in the contract you just signed. Yeah, I know. I read it. I didn't expect it to be that thorough, that fast. It's my life, Logan, and by extension, for 6 weeks, it's yours. I needed to know who I was handing $333,000 to. Mrs. Alvarez was on page 2. What else was on page 2? She hesitated. Your sister lives in Oklahoma. You and she don't speak. You have a restraining order against your late wife's father, which expires in April. You've had the same pickup truck for 9 years, and you've been late on the insurance 4 times. Your credit score is 641 and rising. You attend Mass at St. Catherine's every second Sunday, but you don't take communion. I thought that was interesting. Why? Why you don't take communion? Yeah, I didn't ask. That's your business. I just noted it. Logan looked at her in the rain. I'm never going to get used to you, he said. You have 6 weeks. That's not long enough. It isn't. A car pulled up. Arya's car, apparently, a black sedan with a driver in a cap. She opened the door herself before the driver could get out, because she was that kind of rich. The kind that had outgrown the performance of being rich and now found it tedious. She paused with one hand on the doorframe. Logan. Ma'am. Thursday, 6 p.m. I'll be ready. She got in the car. The door closed. The car pulled away. Logan stood on the sidewalk in the rain with an envelope full of cash pressed against his ribs and a contract in his hand and the distinct, ringing awareness that he had just, for the first time in 3 years, done something his wife would have argued with him about. Rachel had never liked complicated situations. Rachel had been a woman who had paid her bills on the first of the month and kept her receipts in an envelope in the kitchen drawer and had trusted, with the entirety of her small and orderly heart, that if you did the right thing every day, the world would mostly leave you alone. The world had not left Rachel alone. Logan walked 3 blocks to where he'd parked the truck and drove home. The next 48 hours were the longest. 48 hours he had experienced since the week of the funeral. He could not concentrate. He burned toast. He forgot to pick up Eli's medicine at the pharmacy and had to drive back at 9 p.m. to get it. He stood in the middle of the grocery store, holding a box of oatmeal, and could not remember whether they were out of oatmeal or whether he had already bought oatmeal that week. On Wednesday afternoon, a garment bag arrived at his door. He signed for it. He opened it in the living room and stood there looking at a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his truck. He did not try it on. He hung it in the closet and closed the closet and went to pick up his son from school. On Thursday morning at 7:15, Eli asked him over a bowl of cereal, "Dad, why are you wearing your wedding ring today?" Logan looked at his own hand. He had put the ring on without noticing. He wore it sometimes, on hard days, when he woke up and needed the weight of it on his finger to remember who he had been for a while. He did not generally wear it to work. He certainly had no business wearing it to a cocktail reception for a children's hospital where he was scheduled to be photographed, for the first time, as the boyfriend of a woman who was not his dead wife. "Because I miss your mom today, bud." "You miss her every day." "Yeah. Is today a bigger day?" "No, bud. Just a regular day." "Then take it off if it's bugging you." Logan almost laughed, his son's practical little 6-year-old face looking at him over a Cheerio spoon. "Yeah, okay, I'll take it off." "You want pancakes on Saturday?" "Yes, sir." "With the chocolate chips?" "With the chocolate chips." He drove Eli to school. He came home. He slept for 4 hours. He woke up at 1 p.m., and he ironed a shirt that was already ironed, and he polished the black dress shoes he had not polished since Rachel's funeral, and at 5:58 the black sedan pulled into his driveway. He took the ring off. He put it in the ceramic bowl on the dresser where Rachel used to put her earrings. He got in the car. The Children's Hospital reception was held at a private art museum on the north side of the city, and Logan had been inside a lot of buildings in his life, but he had never been inside a building that made him feel as conspicuously out of place as that one. The ceilings were 40 feet high. There was a string quartet. There were waiters in white jackets carrying silver trays of things Logan could not identify. Everyone looked at him when he walked in, and then they looked away. And then they looked back because Aria Bennett was standing in the middle of the room in a black gown with her hair pinned up, and she had just turned and walked across the marble floor to meet him at the door. She took his arm. She kissed his cheek. She said, in a voice that was loud enough to carry to the 3 nearest conversations, "You're late. I was starting to worry." Traffic was bad. It always is. She turned, still holding his arm, and walked him into the room. For the next 2 hours, Aria Bennett introduced Logan Pierce to every person in that building as Logan, someone I've been seeing, which was, he noticed, a very precise phrase. Not a boyfriend, not a partner, not anything that could be legally construed as a commitment, but also unmistakably a relationship in public. She held his hand during photographs. She laughed at something he said at exactly the right moment for a photographer from the society pages to catch it. She touched his tie twice, briefly, absently, the way a woman touches the tie of a man she has known long enough to be mildly annoyed by the crookedness of it. Logan followed her lead. He shook hands. He said, "Pleasure to meet you," a great many times. He did not volunteer information about himself. When anyone asked what he did, he said, "I work in facilities management at Harlow," which was, technically, exactly what he did, and which Aria had coached him to say because it was both true and vague enough to close the conversation. When anyone asked how long they'd been seeing each other, Aria answered always the same answer. "Not long. A few weeks. We're taking it slow." She was very good at it. Logan watched her move through the room, and he realized, with a strange kind of admiration, that she had been doing this her entire life. The performance of ease in a room full of strangers who were all watching her. It was not a skill he had. It was not a skill most people had. It was the skill of a person raised to be looked at. Around 9:30, she steered him toward a quiet corner by one of the windows and said, under her breath, "He's here." "Who?" "Ethan." Logan's stomach dropped. "Where?" "Don't turn around. He's by the bar. He's been watching us for 10 minutes. Aria, it's fine." "It's not fine. You said he grabbed your ankle 3 nights ago." "He's not going to do anything here, Logan. There are 400 people and a dozen photographers. He's going to walk over in about 90 seconds and introduce himself and shake your hand and smile, and you are going to smile back, and you are going to be polite, and you are not going to give him any reason to think that you know anything about anything. Do you understand?" "Yeah." "Say it." "I understand." "Good." Logan made himself breathe. He looked out the window. The city lights stretched down the hill in a long orange glitter. He could see their reflection, faintly, in the glass. Aria, in the black gown, himself in the charcoal suit, The two of them standing close the way people stand when they are pretending to have a private conversation in a public place. "Logan, darling," Arya's voice, public voice, loud. He turned. Ethan Whitlock was about 6'1", with the kind of haircut that cost $300 and the kind of smile that had been practiced in a mirror. He was holding a glass of scotch. He extended his free hand. "You must be the man I keep hearing about." "Logan Pierce." "Ethan Whitlock." They shook. Ethan's handshake was firm, but not crushing. A practiced handshake. A diplomatic handshake. Logan noticed, because he had been trained by 9 years of manual labor to notice hands, that Ethan's knuckles were perfectly smooth, no scars, no calluses, a man whose hands had never worked. "Arya has been very private about you." "I'm a private guy." "So I hear. Facilities management, is it?" "Yes, sir." "How interesting. And where did you two meet?" Arya's hand on Logan's arm tightened very slightly. "At the office, actually," Logan said. "I was working late. She was working late. We got to talking." "How charming." "It was, actually. She's a charming person." "Yes, she is." There was a long pause. Ethan's smile did not move, but something behind his eyes did. Something small and cold and patient. "Well," Ethan said, "I won't keep you. I just wanted to introduce myself. Arya and I are old friends, very old friends. I like to make sure the people in her life know who I am." "Appreciate it," Logan said. "Take good care of her." "I intend to." Ethan held the gaze a beat longer than was comfortable. Then he nodded, turned, and walked away toward the bar. Arya's hand on Logan's arm did not loosen for a full 30 seconds. "Logan?" "Yeah." "Don't ever say that to him again." "Say what?" "I intend to." That was not the script. He was making a threat. Yes, he was. And the script for a threat is, you smile and say, "Thanks, Ethan. It was good to meet you," and then you turn around. The script is not you look him in the eye and tell him you intend to do the thing he just told you not to do. "Arya, Logan, I'm not afraid of him." "I know you're not. That is the problem. He is afraid of people who are not afraid of him, and now he is afraid of you, which is bad, because he is also a coward, and cowards who are afraid do stupid things." Logan looked at her. Her face was still arranged in the expression of a woman enjoying a cocktail reception. Only her eyes gave it away. Her eyes were doing the thing they had done in the hallway 3 nights before. "I'm sorry," he said. "Don't be sorry. Just next time. Follow the script. Please." "Yes, ma'am." Arya, sorry." They stayed another 40 minutes, which Arya said was the minimum required for an orderly exit. She drove him home herself. The driver sat in the passenger seat and did not speak. Arya drove a Range Rover, of all things, and drove it well, and Logan sat in the back because that was the arrangement he had agreed to, and they did not say much until the car pulled up in front of his house at 11:15. "Logan, ma'am. Arya. Arya, sorry. Yes. Thank you. Tonight. You were good." "I wasn't good." "You just said I wasn't good." "You were good at the part you were supposed to be good at, the last exchange notwithstanding." "Okay." She turned in the driver's seat and looked at him over the headrest. "I'll be in touch about the next event, a week from Saturday, a gala for the Public Library Foundation. Short notice, I know." "I'll be ready. Get some sleep." "You too, Arya." He got out of the car. He stood on the sidewalk and watched the Range Rover turn out of his cul-de-sac, and he stood there for a long minute after it was gone, looking at the house where his son was asleep with Mrs. Alvarez snoring on the couch. He thought about Ethan Whitlock's smooth knuckles and Arya's yellow-green bruise and the weight of an envelope of money in his pocket that was no longer in his pocket because he had put it, that morning, into a savings account in his son's name that Eli would not be able to touch until his 18th birthday. He went inside. He thanked Mrs. Alvarez and paid her double what she'd asked for because he could, now, for the first time in 3 years, afford to pay her double. She smiled and squeezed his hand and told him he looked tired and drove home in her little green Corolla. He went upstairs. Eli was asleep on his side, Triceratops under the arm, the blue glow of the nightlight on his face. Logan stood in the doorway for a long time, the way he sometimes did, watching his son breathe. Then he went down the hall to his own room, and he took off the charcoal suit, and he hung it very carefully in the closet because it was not his, and he did not want to damage it. On the dresser, in the ceramic bowl, his wedding ring was where he'd left it that morning. He picked it up. He held it in his palm for a long minute. He thought about Rachel. He thought about her voice, which he could still, after everything, hear clearly in his head, and which he was terrified every day of one day not being able to hear. He put the ring back in the bowl. He got into bed in an empty house, and he did not sleep for a long time. And when he finally did sleep, he dreamed of a hallway on the 12th floor of a building he had mopped for 9 months, and of a woman with one shoe, and of the sound of a door clicking shut at the end of it. In the morning, his phone was buzzing on the nightstand with 3 missed calls from a number he did not recognize and 1 text message from Arya that said simply, "Turn on Channel 4, now." He turned on Channel 4. The local morning show was running a segment on last night's gala. There were photographs. Logan watched his own face, in the charcoal suit, standing next to Arya Bennett in the black gown, his hand at the small of her back and her hand around his wrist, and both of them looking at the camera with the particular half-smile of 2 people caught mid-conversation. The anchor was saying a name. Arya Bennett, daughter of Harlow Construction CEO Marcus Harlow, photographed last night with a new companion. His phone buzzed again. "Your photo is also on page 6 of the Business Journal. It's starting. Call me when you get Eli to school." Logan sat on the edge of his bed in a t-shirt and boxer shorts, watching himself on television, and thought, with a kind of calm and distant astonishment, that he had not had a single photograph of himself in a suit since the day Rachel had been buried in one. Downstairs, his son called out that he couldn't find his other sock. Logan turned off the television. He went down to find the sock. The sock was under the bed, which was where socks always were. Logan fished it out with a hanger and tossed it onto Eli's lap. And Eli said, "Thanks, Dad," without looking up from the cereal bowl, and for a second everything was exactly the way it had been a week ago, and also, somehow, completely different. He drove Eli to school. He pulled into the drop-off lane at St. Catherine's, and Eli unbuckled and leaned across the console for the quick hug that had become their routine, and then he stopped with his hand on the door handle. "Dad?" "Yeah, bud?" "Mrs. Conway said you were on TV this morning." Logan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Mrs. Conway, the art teacher?" "Yeah, she was in the parking lot. She said her husband said he saw you on the news with a lady." "Did she say anything else?" "She said the lady was pretty." Logan looked at his son, Eli's small, serious face looking up at him in the morning light, not accusing, not upset, just asking, waiting, the kind of waiting only a child can do. "Yeah, bud. I was at a work event last night, a fundraiser. There was a lady I was there with." "Is she your girlfriend?" "No, bud." Mrs. Conway said, "Mrs. Conway doesn't know. Grown-ups do stuff for work sometimes that gets taken the wrong way. It was a work thing." Eli looked at him for another long second. "Is she going to come over?" "No, bud. She's not." "Okay." He opened the door, he slid out. He hitched up his backpack and he walked toward the school building, and Logan watched him go and thought about how a 6-year-old's okay could land in a man's chest with more weight than a grown adult's entire argument. He pulled out of the drop-off line. He drove around the block. He parked on a side street under an oak tree, and he sat in the truck with the engine off. And he called Arya. She picked up on the second ring. "Logan, my son's teacher saw the photo." "Yes." "My son's 6-year-old teacher saw the photo before 8 a.m. on a Friday." "Yes, Logan." "This is what you meant when you said it was starting." "Yes." He exhaled. He pressed his forehead against the steering wheel. "Arya, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to it and not try to talk me out of it." "Okay." "If this gets to him, if he hears this from another kid, or from a teacher who doesn't know it's fake, or from the internet, I'm done. I don't care what week we're in, I'm done." That was the deal. "I know." "Then how do we keep it from getting to him?" She was quiet for a second. "We can't. Not entirely. What we can do is control what he hears and who he hears it from. Which means, Logan, you need to tell him something yourself before anyone else does. Today." "Tell him what?" "Whatever you want. A version you can live with. I don't care if it's the truth or a lie or something in between. But if another second grader asks him on Monday whether his dad has a new girlfriend, he needs to already have an answer in his mouth that he heard from you first." "I don't know what to tell him." "You will." Arya, I am not a person who lies to my kid. Logan, listen, you're not lying to your kid. You're telling him something true, that a woman at your work is going through a hard time, and you are helping her. And for 6 weeks, you are going to be photographed with her because that's part of helping her. That's the truth. You don't have to mention the money. You don't have to mention the fiancé. You just have to tell him enough that when it hits him from the outside, he already knows. Logan sat with that for a long minute. All right. All right? All right, I'll figure it out. Good. Arya. Yes. You still there? I'm here. Can I ask you something? Yes. Are you okay this morning? There was a long pause on the other end of the line, long enough that he looked at the phone screen to make sure the call was still connected. Why do you ask? I don't know. Your voice sounds different. My voice sounds exactly the same. It doesn't. Another pause. Ethan called my office at 6:30 this morning. He left a voicemail. It was not a friendly voicemail. What did he say? He said, Logan, I don't want to repeat it. He said some things about my mother, who died when I was 11. He knows I don't like it when people say things about my mother. That's the reason he said them. Logan's hand tightened on the phone. Is there a copy of the voicemail? Yes, it's in my inbox. Don't delete it. I know, Logan. Sorry, I know you know. It's okay. It's actually okay. Thank you for asking. I'll see you tonight? Tonight? I thought we had something tonight. No, next Saturday, the library gala. I told you last night. Right, sorry. My brain's slow today. Get some coffee. Yes, ma'am. Arya? Arya. Bye. She hung up. Logan sat under the oak tree for another 10 minutes. Then he drove home and made a second pot of coffee and tried to think about how to explain to a 6-year-old something he was not sure he entirely understood himself. That afternoon, he picked Eli up from school at 3. He took him to a diner they sometimes went to on Fridays, a little booth by the window with vinyl seats and a jukebox that had not worked since 2011. Eli ordered a grilled cheese, Logan ordered a coffee. When the food came, Logan watched his son take a bite, and then he set his coffee down, and he said, Hey, bud, I need to talk to you about something. Eli looked up. Am I in trouble? No, not even a little. Okay. Remember what Mrs. Conway said this morning? About the lady? Eli chewed. Yeah. So, there's a lady at my work. Her name is Arya. She's going through some hard stuff right now. Somebody is being mean to her, really mean, and she needed somebody to help her for a while, and she asked me, and I said yes. What kind of mean? Grown-up mean, not the kind you worry about. Okay, so for a little bit, maybe a month and a half, I'm going to go to some places with her, some fancy places, and people are going to take pictures, and maybe some of them are going to end up on the news, and they're going to say we're dating, but we're not dating. It's just a thing to help her. Eli thought about this. Like when you helped Mrs. Alvarez fix her fence. Kind of like that? Yeah. Okay. She's not going to come over. I'm not going to bring her to the house. You're not going to meet her. It's just a work thing. Why are you helping her? Logan paused. Because she helped us first. How? She's paying me a lot of money to help her. And that money means I can keep taking you to your school, which you love. And we can get the truck fixed. And we can have a little bit extra for Christmas. That's why I said yes. Eli looked at him with those serious brown eyes that had always looked too old for his face. So she's paying you to be her fake boyfriend. Eli, that's what it sounds like. Where did you learn about fake boyfriends? Jacob's sister watches a show. Jesus. Okay, yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's what it is. Is she nice? Yeah. Yeah, I think she's nice. She's having a hard time and she's kind of scared, but yeah, she's nice. Okay, Dad. Okay? I'm not mad. I didn't think you were mad. You looked like you thought I was going to be mad. Yeah, a little. Eli took another bite of the grilled cheese. He chewed, he swallowed. Dad. Yeah, bud. Don't let her be mean to you. Logan's throat closed for a second. I won't. Promise. I promise. Okay. They ate the rest of the meal in comfortable quiet. Logan watched his son dip a French fry in ketchup and thought, not for the first time, that the hardest and best thing about raising a child alone was that the child watched you more carefully than anyone else ever would, and you could not hide anything from him, no matter how hard you tried. That night, after Eli was asleep, Logan sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee he did not need and opened the laptop Arya had shipped to his house with the contract. It was a slim silver thing, brand new, loaded with an encrypted email client and a scheduling app and not much else. He was not a computer person. He could barely send an email. But he had learned the basics because the contract required him to check the email every 12 hours. There was one new message. It was from Arya. The subject line said Saturday night, read when alone. He looked at the clock. It was 10:47 p.m. He was alone. He opened it. Logan. Ethan was at Whitmore's tonight. Whitmore's is a private club my father belongs to. He was drunk. He was telling people, loudly, that I had hired a man to embarrass him publicly. He named you. He named your employer. He said you were, and I am quoting from my source at the club, a maintenance worker with a sob story. He is going to call your workplace on Monday morning. I have already talked to my father. Your employment is safe, but you need to know that on Monday, when you arrive at Harlow, things will be different. People will have heard things. They will look at you differently. The other janitors will look at you differently. I am sorry. I did not expect him to escalate this quickly. If you want to end the arrangement, I will understand. A. Logan read it twice. He closed the laptop. He sat in the dark kitchen for a long time with his hands around the empty coffee cup. Then he opened the laptop again and typed a reply. Arya, I'm not quitting, but next time you know something like this is coming, tell me before, not after. I don't want to find out from an email at 11 at night that my whole crew knows my business. L. He sent it. 3 minutes later, she wrote back. Understood. I'm sorry. He closed the laptop and went to bed. On Monday morning, he arrived at Harlow Construction for his 10 p.m. shift and signed in at the night desk the way he always did. And the security guard, a man named Ronnie, who had worked the night desk for 11 years and had shared about 100 cups of coffee with Logan over that time, looked up at him and did not quite smile. Evening, Logan. Ronnie. Slow night. They usually are. You doing all right? Yeah, why? No reason. Logan stopped with his hand on the turnstile. Ronnie, what did you hear? Logan, tell me. Oh, hell, Logan, I don't know. People are saying stuff. Gerald from HR said something to Dennis on Sunday. Dennis told me it's that kind of thing. That kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. Logan went upstairs. He worked his shift. He mopped the 3rd floor and the 5th floor, and when he got to the 12th floor, he paused outside Arya's office, which was dark, and he stood there for a second with his hand on the cart and thought about the first time he'd seen her, the woman with the one shoe, and the distance between that woman and the one who was now apparently being discussed at private clubs by angry drunk men. He did not stop. He mopped the 12th floor. He clocked out at 6. He drove home in the gray early morning, and the sun came up and he made pancakes, and he took Eli to school, and he came home and slept, and it was, for 3 more days, a strange, uneasy peace. On Wednesday afternoon, at 2:14 p.m., his phone rang. The number was Mrs. Alvarez. Logan, it's Maria. Her voice was wrong. Maria, what's going on? There is a man here. Where? At your house? In front of my house, sitting in a car. I saw him this morning when I dropped Eli off at school. Now he is here. He has been here for an hour. Logan was already moving. He was pulling on his boots. Maria, listen to me. Is Eli at school right now? Yes, he is at school. Stay inside. Lock the door. Do not go out. Don't open it for anybody except me. I'm coming. I'm leaving right now. Logan, 12 minutes, Maria. I'll be there in 12 minutes. He hung up. He grabbed his keys. He called Arya from the truck as he pulled out of the driveway. Logan, there's a man watching Mrs. Alvarez's house. What? There is a man in a car in front of Mrs. Alvarez's house. She saw him this morning at Eli's school. I'm on my way to her now. The line went quiet for half a second. When Arya spoke again, her voice was completely different. Not panicked, not angry, just calm and cold and very precisely organized. Logan, listen to me. I am going to hang up. I am going to call a man named Darius Ford. He is head of my family's private security. In 5 minutes, there will be 2 SUVs at Mrs. Alvarez's house and 1 SUV at Eli's school and 1 at your house. You are not going to engage with whoever is in that car. You're going to pull up, park, and wait for Darius's team. Do you hear me? Logan, do you hear me? Yes. Do not engage, promise me. I promise. I'll call you back in 4 minutes. She hung up. Logan drove. He ran 2 red lights. He got to Maria's street in 11 minutes flat. There was a gray sedan parked 2 houses down from Maria's with a man sitting in the driver's seat. Logan saw him through the windshield as he turned onto the block. A man in a baseball cap, maybe 40, holding a phone to his ear. Logan pulled up behind the sedan. He put the truck in park. He got out. He had promised Arya he would not engage. He had, for 12 minutes, fully intended to keep that promise. But the man in the sedan had seen him in the rearview mirror and had started the car. And Logan realized with a clarity that was almost physical that if he let the car drive away, he would never know who it had been, and he would never know if it was coming back. He walked up to the driver's side window. The man rolled it down halfway. Help you? Yeah, Logan said. You can help me. You can tell me what you're doing on this street. Waiting for a friend. Which house is your friend's house? The man smiled. It was a tight, small smile. You're the Pierce guy. Excuse me? You're the Pierce guy, Logan Pierce. You work nights at Harlow Construction. You got a kid at St. Catherine's, 6 years old, named Eli. Your wife died 3 years ago. You pay Mrs. Alvarez $50 a night to watch the boy. That her house right there? Logan did not move. Who sent you? I'm just waiting for a friend. Who sent you? Sir, I think you got the wrong... Logan reached through the window, took the man by the collar of his jacket, and pulled him about 6 inches toward the doorframe. I'm going to ask one more time. Who sent you? The man was not afraid. That was the first thing Logan registered. He was not afraid at all. He looked at Logan's hand on his collar with a kind of patient professional interest. Let go of me, Mr. Pierce. Who sent you? Let go of me, or my hand is going to come up, and when it comes up, you are going to wish you had kept your hand in your pocket. Let go. I am not going to ask again. Logan let go. The man straightened his collar. Smart. Who sent you? You have been asked a question you should not need a man like me to answer. You know who sent me. You have known since you picked up the phone 20 minutes ago. The question you should be asking is not who sent me. It is what you are going to do when the next man comes, and the next man does not roll the window down to talk. The man rolled the window up. He pulled out of the parking space and drove away slowly, the way a man drives when he is not afraid of being chased. Logan stood in the middle of the street with his hands shaking. 2 black Suburbans turned onto the block 30 seconds later. 4 men got out, big men in dark suits, moving with a clean military economy that Logan recognized without having ever seen it in person. One of them walked up to him. He was a black man in his 50s, bald, with a neat gray beard and an earpiece. Mr. Pierce? Yes. Darius Ford, Miss Bennett asked me to meet you here. There was a man, a gray sedan, Missouri plates. We clocked him coming off the interstate. My team has the plate and a photograph of the driver. We will know who he is within the hour. Logan was having trouble breathing. My son's at school. My team is already there. The school has been informed. Your son is safe. He is in the principal's office with 2 of my people. He is not being told anything is wrong. He has been told that Mrs. Alvarez had a small medical issue and a different person is going to pick him up today. He thinks it's an adventure. Maria, a team is inside her house with her right now. She's fine. A little shaken. She made everyone coffee. That sounds like her. It does, yes. Darius Ford reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. He handed it to Logan. Mr. Pierce, I am going to give you a number. It is my direct line. From this moment forward, if your phone rings with anything that worries you, anything, you call me before you call 911. Do you understand? Yes. I'm not saying you don't call 911. I'm saying you call me first, because I can have a car at your location in 4 minutes, and the police can have a car at your location in 14. I would rather be the one there first. Yes. Good. Mr. Ford. Darius? Darius. How serious is this? Darius looked at him for a long second. Mr. Pierce, I've been doing this work for 23 years. In my professional judgment, and I do not say this to frighten you, this is very serious. The man in that car was a professional. He was there to send you a message. The message was, we know who you are, and we know where your people are. The message was effective. The next message will not be a man sitting in a car. What do we do? We keep you and your son alive until Ms. Bennett can finish what she is doing. That is what we do. And we do it one day at a time. Logan closed his eyes. I want to talk to Arya. She's on her way. Here? She's 15 minutes out. Logan stood in the street with a stranger's business card in his hand and thought about his son in the principal's office with 2 armed men watching the door. He thought about Rachel. He thought about a promise he had made in a hospital waiting room to take care of their kid. He thought about a woman with one shoe who had walked into his life and had, through no fault of her own and through every fault of her own, turned his entire quiet, careful world upside down. He was not angry. That was the strange thing. He was something else. He did not have a word for it yet. Arya arrived in a black SUV. She got out and she was not wearing her CEO clothes. She was wearing jeans and a sweater and flat shoes, and her hair was pulled back, and she had no makeup on, and she looked for the first time in the 3 weeks Logan had known her like a real person and not a character in a magazine. She walked straight to him. She stopped about 3 feet away. Logan, Arya, is your son? Your guy told me he's safe. He is safe. Okay? Logan? Yeah. I am so sorry. Don't. I am, though. Arya, stop. We don't have time for you to be sorry. I need you to tell me something, and I need you to tell me honestly. Okay. Is it still 6 weeks? What? Is it still 6 weeks until you do whatever you're going to do with that portfolio, or has that changed? Because if it's 6 weeks, we don't make it. You understand me? We don't make it. That man today was the first one. There are going to be more. My son is going to notice things. Maria is going to quit. I cannot protect a child for 6 weeks against somebody who can afford professionals. I know. So when? She took a breath. I meet with the U.S. Attorney's Office on Friday. 3 days. Friday afternoon. I'm handing over the portfolio. Once it's in federal hands, there's nothing Ethan can do to make it disappear. He will know I've done it by Monday at the latest, because his father's lawyers have a source inside that office. The indictment will be unsealed, optimistically, within 2 to 3 weeks of that. So I have to keep my son alive for 2 to 3 weeks after Monday. Yes. How? Darius's team stays with you until the indictment drops. You don't go to work. You don't send Eli to school. I'll handle your employer. I'll handle the school. The school has already been notified. You will stay at a house I own about an hour north of the city. It's remote. It's secure. There is a woman there who cooks. There is a teacher on staff for the children who stay there sometimes. Eli will be fine. He will think he is on vacation. Logan looked at her. You own a safe house. I own several. My father is a paranoid man. He believed correctly that rich people have enemies. Arya. Yes. This is a lot. I know. I didn't sign up for this. I know. When we signed the contract, you said, the worst thing that would happen is that the tabloids would run my photograph and I'd have to pretend to smile at your ex-fiancé at a party. You did not say somebody was going to come to my son's school. I know, Logan. So what changed? The portfolio changed. When I moved the portfolio out of my apartment 3 weeks ago, he didn't know. When I walked you into the gala last weekend, he figured out I wasn't coming back. When his investigators could not find the portfolio in any of the places he expected it to be, he realized it was already somewhere he could not reach it. That was Sunday night. By Monday morning, he understood that I was not trying to embarrass him. I was trying to destroy him. Today, he is, I don't know how to say this gently, he is beginning to panic. And a panicking man is what produces the kind of man who sat outside Mrs. Alvarez's house this afternoon. Logan was quiet. Logan, she said, I will understand if you want out. I can have you and Eli somewhere safe by tonight, and I will keep paying you. I won't hold you to any of the remaining events. You do not have to do another public thing with me. We can end the arrangement today, and you can disappear until this is done. I will understand. Logan looked at her. He looked at her for a long time. He thought about the bruise on her wrist, which he had not seen in a week because her sleeves were always long now, and which was probably still there. He thought about a voicemail from a man at 6:30 in the morning saying things about a dead mother. He thought about his son, who had told him at a diner on Friday not to let a woman be mean to him, and had meant it. "No," Logan said. "Logan. No, I'm not out. I'm not disappearing. I'm going to your safe house. I'm taking my kid, and when this is done, I am going to come back, and I am going to stand next to you in whatever courtroom and whatever press conference and whatever ugly public mess is the end of it. Because if I disappear now, he has won. He has decided I'm a nothing he can frighten out of your life, and the answer to that is not to prove him right. Logan, I'm not done." "Okay, I'm doing this because you did not ask me to do it. Anybody else in your life, Arya? Anybody, your father, his board, his lawyers, would have told you to cut me loose. And you came here to tell me I could go, so I'm staying. That's the reason." She did not say anything. She just stood there in the street in the flat shoes and the jeans, and she looked at him, and her eyes did the thing, not the hallway thing, a new thing, something that was not in any of the photographs from the gala, and was not in any of the board meetings, and was not anywhere in the very expensive version of herself she had been carrying around like a briefcase for the last 11 months. "Okay," she said, "okay. I'm going to get your son now." "Arya." "Yes. I want to be there when he gets in the car. He needs to see me before he sees anyone else." "Of course." They drove to St. Catharines in the black SUV with Darius up front and another man behind the wheel, and when they pulled into the parking lot, Logan got out first. Eli was waiting in the principal's office with a security officer on either side of him, and when he saw Logan through the glass, his whole face did the thing small children's faces do when they had been being brave for an hour and were finally allowed to stop. He ran. Logan caught him. "Dad." "Hey, bud." They said Mrs. Alvarez is sick. "She's okay now, she's fine. I saw her. Can I go home?" "Not today, bud. Today we're going on a trip, a little vacation. Some friends of mine have a house in the country. There's a lake. We're going to stay there for a little while." "Is there a TV?" "Yeah, there's a TV." "Are you coming?" "I am coming. I'm going to be with you the whole time." "Who are the men with the coats?" "They work for the Friends. They're going to help us get there. They're nice guys. One of them is named Darius. You'll like him." "Okay." Eli tucked his face into Logan's shoulder, and Logan stood in the hallway of the school and held his son and breathed in the smell of the kid's hair, which was sweat and crayon wax, and the faintly chemical smell of school-issued hand soap. And he thought, with the oldest, most unwelcome clarity of his entire life, that there had been a moment back in Maria's street when the man in the baseball cap had said the next man will not roll the window down, and Logan had felt, for the first time in 3 years, an emotion he had not wanted to feel again. It was not fear. Fear was what he had felt 3 years ago, at the side of an interstate, with a highway patrolman saying his wife's name with the wrong tense. This was different. This was the thing on the other side of fear. The thing that happened when fear ran out of room. Arya was standing in the doorway watching him hold his son. Logan met her eyes over the top of Eli's head. "Arya." "Yes." "Get in the car." They got in the car. The SUV pulled out of the parking lot of St. Catharines and took the long way to the interstate, and a second SUV followed it, and somewhere behind them another car was following that one. And by 4 p.m., Logan Pierce and his son were 40 miles out of the city, driving north on a 2-lane highway toward a house Logan had never seen, in a life he had never asked for. Sitting next to a woman whose name he had first learned in a hallway at midnight 3 weeks ago, and had not, since that moment, been able to get out of his head. Eli had fallen asleep with his head in Logan's lap. Arya was on the phone in the front passenger seat, speaking quietly in a language Logan did not know, something that sounded like French, maybe, or some version of it, and making arrangements that Logan would not understand for another 3 days. Outside the window, the fields turned gold with late afternoon. Logan rested one hand on his son's back, feeling the small, steady rise and fall of the kid's breathing, and he watched the road disappear under the wheels of the SUV, and he understood, somewhere underneath the part of his brain that was still a cautious man who had lived a cautious life, that he had stopped running a long time ago, and that what was happening now was not a thing he was surviving. It was a thing he had chosen. The sun dipped behind a stand of oak trees, and the inside of the SUV went gold, and then gray, and then dark. Nobody spoke for the rest of the drive. The house was a long, low stone thing at the end of a gravel road. surrounded on three sides by woods, and on the fourth by a lake that was a flat sheet of black glass under the moon. Logan carried Eli inside, still sleeping, and a woman in her 60s with a gray braid down her back introduced herself as Teresa and showed him up a flight of wooden stairs to a bedroom with two twin beds and a nightlight already plugged into the wall. She had been told about Eli. She had been told about the dinosaurs. There was a plastic triceratops on the pillow. Logan looked at it and said nothing, because if he said anything, he was going to cry. And he had not cried in front of another adult since the morning of Rachel's funeral. He tucked his son in. He kissed the top of the sleeping head. He went downstairs. Arya was in the kitchen. Darius was on the phone by the window. Two of the security men were outside on the porch doing something with flashlights and a clipboard. Teresa had put a bowl of soup on the table and a piece of buttered bread next to it, and Arya had not touched either one. She was sitting with her elbows on the table and her face in her hands. Logan sat down across from her. "Eat the soup." "Logan, eat it. You're going to be up all night making phone calls. Eat the soup." She picked up the spoon. She ate 3 spoonfuls. She set the spoon back down. "I need to tell you everything," she said. "I figured. Not the version I told you on Monday at my office, the whole thing, because you and your son are in this house tonight because of me, and you deserve to know exactly what I got you into, and you deserve to know it before anything else happens." "Arya, let me say it." "Okay." She took a breath. "Ethan Whitlock is not just embezzling from my father's company. That is the small part. Ethan's family has been laundering money for a syndicate out of Eastern Europe for about 7 years. His father is in it up to his neck. Harlow Construction is one of 4 corporate fronts they've used to move the money. The $41 million I told you about is 1 year. There are 6 more years behind it. My father does not know. My father genuinely does not know. His signature is on documents he never read, which his general counsel approved on his behalf, which the general counsel has been paid very well not to think too hard about. I figured this out 3 months ago. That's when I started building the real file, not the embezzlement file, the full file." Logan did not move. "How big is the real file?" 231 pages, 47 exhibits, a flash drive with 80 hours of recorded phone calls that I made with the device the FBI gave me 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago. I have been cooperating with federal authorities for 6 weeks, Logan. The portfolio in my father's safe was the decoy. The real file is in Washington. It has been in Washington for 4 days. Logan stared at her. "You lied to me. I withheld information." "Arya." "Yes. You lied to me." "Yes, I lied to you." He stood up. He walked to the window. He looked out at the black lake. He put his hand flat against the cold glass. He breathed. "Why?" "Because when I came to you that night in my office, I did not know whether you were the kind of man who would walk away the second you understood how big it was. I needed 6 weeks. I needed the public relationship. I needed a human being in my life who did not work for Ethan, and did not work for my father, and did not work for the Bureau. And I thought, if I told you everything, you would say no. And I could not afford a no. So I told you a smaller version of the truth, a version I thought you could live with. You thought wrong. Yes. You put my son in a car with a man you knew was working for a syndicate. You put my son in St. Catharines with a target on his back, and you did not tell me. Logan, I did not know it would escalate this fast. You knew it could. Yes. Arya. Yes. Look at me. She looked up. Her eyes were red. She was not crying. She was past crying. She was at the place people got to when they had been holding something for months, and the thing had finally become heavier than the holding. Why tell me now? Because you stayed. When I gave you the door to leave, you stayed. And you said you stayed because I did not ask you to. And I am not going to let you stand next to me through what's coming on a lie. I have done a lot of things in the last year I am not proud of, Logan. Lying to you cannot be one of them. Not anymore. Logan stood at the window for a long time. Is there anything else? Yes. Tell me. The man who sat outside Maria's house today. His name is Petar Vukovic. He's Serbian. He has been in this country for 9 years on an expired tourist visa. He has been arrested twice in Chicago for assault and once in Detroit for possession of an unregistered firearm. Both times the charges were dropped. He has killed at least 2 people that the FBI knows about. He works for Douglas Whitlock, Ethan's father, as what Douglas calls a problem solver. He was at Mrs. Alvarez's house today to frighten you. He was not there to hurt anyone. He is rarely the man they send to hurt people. They send him when they want you to understand that the next man will hurt people. Arya. Yes. How do you know all this? Because the Bureau briefed me on him last Thursday. They believed he would be deployed. They were not sure when. I should have warned you Thursday night. I didn't because I was hoping it would not happen before Friday. Because if the indictment comes down Friday, Peter gets arrested with everyone else, and he never shows up at anyone's babysitter's house. You gambled with my kid. I did. Logan turned around from the window. He looked at her. Something in him was breaking. He did not know what. He did not know if it was breaking in a good way or a bad way. He only knew that 3 weeks ago, he had been a man who mopped floors at night, and now he was a man standing in the kitchen of a stranger's lake house, being told by a woman he had met in a hallway that his son had been a chess piece in a game he had not known was being played, and that the woman telling him this had known it and had told him anyway, because she was too tired not to. I should be angrier than I am. You're allowed to be as angry as you want. That's the thing, Arya. I'm not. Why not? Because you could have let me keep the small version. You could have let me sit across this table tonight with a soup you didn't eat, and you could have kept the rest of it in Washington, and I would never have known. You chose to tell me. You did not have to choose that. Logan, I'm still angry. I want you to understand that. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying I understand why you did it. Those are different things. They are. But they are closer than I expected them to be 10 minutes ago, and that's going to have to be enough for tonight, because I am too tired to figure out the difference. She nodded. She looked down at her hands. When is Friday? Friday is the day after tomorrow. What happens Friday? I fly to Washington at 6 a.m. I sit with the U.S. Attorney for 4 hours. I testify to a grand jury on Monday morning. They have already signed the indictment. It is sealed. On Tuesday morning at approximately 7 a.m., FBI agents arrest Ethan Whitlock at his apartment, his father at his home in Greenwich, and 11 other people in 6 states. Petar Vukovich gets picked up at a residence in Chicago he does not know we know about. By 8 a.m. Tuesday, the threat to you and your son is substantially reduced. By end of week, with cooperation deals, it's functionally over. Functionally, Logan, I'm not going to lie to you again. There is a non-zero chance that someone downstream of this network decides, for reasons I cannot predict, that you or I or your son is still a problem to be managed. The Bureau thinks that chance is small. Darius thinks that chance is not zero. I think Darius is right. You and Eli will have protection for a minimum of 6 months after the arrests. Probably longer. My own protection will be indefinite. That is the life I chose. That is not the life you chose, but it is the life you are now in, and I am sorry. Logan sat back down. He looked at the bowl of soup. It was cold. I want to ask you something. Yes. The voicemail. The one about your mother. Yes. Was that real, or was that part of managing me? She closed her eyes. It was real. It was 100% real. He called me at 6:30 in the morning, and he said terrible things about a woman who died of ovarian cancer when I was 11 years old. And I sat in my bathtub for 45 minutes with the phone in my hand, and I did not tell you about it until you asked me if I was okay, because I did not want you to feel sorry for me, because I did not want that to be the reason you stayed. Arya. Yes. I did not stay because I felt sorry for you. I know. Okay, just so we're clear. We're clear. They sat there for a while. Teresa came in at some point and took the soup away. She brought 2 cups of coffee. She put a plate of cookies on the table that neither of them touched. She did not ask any questions. She left. Around 11 p.m., Darius came in from the porch and said, Mr. Pierce, ma'am, I need about 4 minutes. Go. Plate came back. Gray sedan. It's a rental. Rented under a fake name with a fake card. The card has been used 3 other times in the past 18 months. All 3 times within 48 hours of, I'm going to use delicate language here, a significant event. The Bureau is aware. They are very interested. They want to know if Ms. Bennett would be willing to move up her Washington meeting. To when? Tomorrow morning. Arya looked at Logan. Logan, go. I don't want to leave you here. Arya, go. Tomorrow morning. Get it done. The faster you get to Washington, the faster my kid sleeps in his own bed. I won't be back until late Friday. I'll be here. Darius stays with you. Teresa stays. The perimeter is already set. Go, Arya. She stood up. She looked at him across the table for a long second. She opened her mouth. She closed it. Logan. Yeah. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm thanking you now, in case later isn't available. He did not have an answer for that. She left the room. He heard her on the stairs. He heard a door close. He sat at the table in the dark kitchen of a house he did not own, and he drank cold coffee and watched the lake. Friday came. Friday went. On Friday evening, Arya was in a hotel in Washington. On Friday evening, Logan was in the lake house reading a dinosaur book out loud to his son. Eli had found, in the house's library, a book about the Cretaceous period that was too old for him, and Logan was doing the voices. And Eli was correcting the pronunciation of Tyrannosaurus rex because his second-grade teacher had taught the class the proper syllables. Teresa had made macaroni and cheese. The security men rotated in and out like shift workers at a factory. Darius sat on the porch with a newspaper and never seemed to read it. On Saturday morning, Logan woke up to the sound of his phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was Arya. Arya? Logan? You okay? I'm okay. I'm coming back this afternoon. The grand jury convenes Monday, indictment Tuesday, arrests Tuesday morning. Okay. Logan. Yeah. I need to ask you something. Okay. When this is done, when Tuesday is over and the arrests are done and the press conference has happened and my father has signed the paperwork and I have stood in front of the board and we have all said what we are going to say, when all of that is done, can I come back to the lake house? What do you mean? Can I come back? Not as the woman with the portfolio, not as the woman paying you, not as any of it. Just me. For a day. A weekend. I don't know. I don't know how to ask this. I have not asked anyone for anything in about 7 years. Logan sat on the edge of the bed in the lake house that belonged to a woman he had known for 3 weeks, in a life that did not belong to him, and he thought about the question. Arya. Yes. Why? Because I don't want this to be the last time I see you. Arya. I am not asking you for anything you are not ready to give. I am asking if a door exists, that's all. A door. Not for today, not for Tuesday. A door. Somewhere. Logan was quiet for a long time. I have to think about it. Okay. That's not a no. I know. I have to think about what I tell my son. I have to think about a lot of things. I haven't thought about any of them yet because we have been in this house for 3 days and my brain is still catching up. Take your time. I will. Logan? Yeah. I'm not going to ask again. If the answer is no, you don't have to tell me. Silence will be the answer. I don't want you to ever have to say it out loud. Arya, I'm going to tell you either way. Okay? That's the deal. Okay? Come back safe. I will. She hung up. Tuesday morning arrived the way Tuesday mornings always arrived, which was slowly and then all at once. At 7:04 a.m. Eastern Time, FBI agents knocked on the door of an apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and Ethan Whitlock was arrested in a bathrobe. And at 7:11 a.m., a second team arrested Douglas Whitlock at his home in Connecticut. And by 8:15 a.m. Central Time, 11 other men and 2 women had been taken into custody across 6 states, and a man named Petar Vukovic had been pulled out of a second-floor apartment in Chicago with his hands flex-cuffed behind his back and a federal warrant in his face. At 9:30 a.m. Central Time, Arya Bennett walked into her father's office at Harlow Construction with Marcus Harlow's personal attorney and the company's outside counsel and 2 federal prosecutors, and she closed the door, and for the next 2 hours she told her father everything, and her father sat in his leather chair and listened. And when she was done, he took her hand in his, and he said, Arya would tell Logan this later in a kitchen with the lights off. He said, Kid, you did it right. I am so goddamn proud of you. I am sorry I was not the father you needed me to be to make this easier. He was not a religious man, and he was not a sentimental one, and it was the first thing he had said to his daughter in 11 months that she had not had to translate through a lawyer. By noon, the press release was out. By 2 p.m., Aria Bennett had been named acting CEO of Harlow Construction, pending board approval. By 4 p.m., Darius Ford stood in the kitchen of a stone house by a lake, and he told Logan Pierce that it was over. It's over. What's over? All of it. The arrest happened. The Whitlocks are in federal custody. Vukovich is in federal custody. The 2 other men we were watching are in federal custody. The rest of the network is being rounded up state by state. Your protective detail stays with you for 6 months out of an abundance of caution. Your son can go back to St. Catherine's tomorrow morning. Ms. Bennett will be here tonight. Logan sat down at the kitchen table. He put his face in his hands. Darius. Yes, Mr. Pierce. Thank you. You're welcome. Darius. Yes. I don't know what I'm doing. Sir, in my experience, nobody ever does. The people who do the best are the ones who admit it first. He patted Logan on the shoulder. He walked out onto the porch. At 11:47 p.m., Aria's SUV pulled up to the house. She came in through the kitchen door. Teresa had gone to bed. Darius had gone to bed. The 2 security men were out by the gate. The whole house was quiet and dark except for the kitchen, where Logan was sitting at the table with one lamp on and a cup of coffee he had not been drinking and a book he had not been reading. Aria stood in the doorway. Logan? Aria. Is he asleep? He's asleep. Good. She came into the kitchen. She pulled out the chair across from him. She sat down. She looked about 100 years old. I need you to know something, she said. Okay. I asked you on the phone on Saturday if I could come back here, if there could be a door. I want to take the question back. Aria. Listen, let me finish. I want to take the question back because I think I asked it from a place of exhaustion. I think I asked it because I wanted something to hold on to during the worst week of my life. And I think it was not fair of me to ask you for a door while you were still in this house with your son because of a situation I created. So I want to take the question back, and I want to ask you something else instead. Okay? I want to ask you if I can meet him. Logan went still. Eli. I want to meet your son once for 5 minutes in daylight with you in the room, and then I want to go home and I want to let you and your son get back to the life you had before I walked into a hallway on a Tuesday night in a torn coat. And I want you to know that the offer on the contract still stands, and the second half of the money is already in your account. And I am not asking you for anything. I'm asking you for 5 minutes, because your son has been in a house for a week because of me, and I would like to apologize to him if you think that is something he would understand. Logan looked at her across the kitchen table. He did not say anything for a while. Then he said, Aria. Yes. I thought about your question for 3 days. Okay. I thought about it when I was making pancakes. I thought about it when I was reading the dinosaur book. I thought about it at 3 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. I thought about it a lot. Logan. Let me finish. Okay. I don't want 5 minutes, Aria. I want the door. I want the door open. I don't know what's on the other side of it. I don't know if we walk through it or we stand there and look through it for 6 months before we do. I don't know if we ever do, but I want it open. I want to see what's there. And I want my son to know that the woman who turned our life upside down is a real person who I trust enough to bring into our kitchen, not because she paid me, but because my son once told me not to let a woman be mean to me, and you have not been mean to me. You have been a lot of things. You have been complicated. You have been dishonest. You have been absolutely exhausting, but you have not been mean to me, and I want the door open. She did not say anything. Her face did a thing he had not seen her face do before, which was to not do anything at all. For about 4 full seconds, while her brain caught up with what her ears had just heard. Then she reached across the kitchen table with both hands. She took his hand. She did not squeeze it. She just held it, palm down on the wood, with her 2 hands on top of it, like she was holding a small bird she did not want to crush. Logan. Yeah. Okay. 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 We leave the door open. Okay. They sat there like that for a long time, in the kitchen, with the one lamp, and the coffee neither of them was drinking, And upstairs, a 6-year-old boy asleep with a plastic triceratops under his arm. And outside the window, a lake that had stopped being black and had started, in the east, to go a very slow, pale gray, with the very first hint of a morning that was not yet there. Morning came the way mornings come at a lake, which is to say without announcement. Eli padded down the stairs at 6:40 in mismatched socks and found his father in the kitchen with a woman he had never seen before. And he stopped on the bottom step with one hand on the banister, and he looked at Logan, and Logan looked back, and the two of them had one of those silent father-son conversations that lasted about a second and a half and contained more information than most adult marriages. "Bud," Logan said, "come here a sec." Eli came over. He climbed up onto the chair next to his dad, feet not touching the floor, and he looked across the table at Arya, who had stood up and then sat back down, and then folded her hands in her lap, and was trying, Logan noticed, very hard not to cry. "Eli," Logan said, "this is my friend Arya, the one I told you about, the one at work." "The lady." "Yeah, the lady." Eli considered her with the grave patience of a 6-year-old evaluating a stranger. "You're the one who was on TV." "Yes." "My teacher's husband saw you." "I heard." "Are you okay now?" Arya opened her mouth. She closed it. She opened it again. "Yes," she said. "I am. Because your dad helped me." "Dad helps everybody." "I know. He's good at it." "I know he is." Eli nodded, satisfied, and turned to Logan. "Can I have pancakes?" "You can have pancakes." "Can she stay for pancakes?" Logan looked at Arya across the table. "Yeah, Bud," he said, "she can stay for pancakes." That was it. That was the whole thing. Children do not need the things adults think they need. They need the grown-ups in the room to not be lying. They need breakfast. They need somebody to know what they want on their pancakes. They need to know that the strange lady at the table is not going to take their father away, and that their father is not going to forget they're in the room. Eli got all of this in about 40 seconds, and then he climbed down from the chair and went to find a triceratops he had left on the couch. Logan made pancakes. Arya sat at the table and watched him. She did not offer to help because she did not know how. Her entire adult life had been assembled out of conference rooms and car services and men in white jackets bringing her $48 fish. And she did not know how to make pancakes, and she was not going to pretend she did. She just sat there, and she watched a man she had met in a hallway flip pancakes for a kid she had met 4 minutes ago, and something in her chest that had been locked for a very long time opened quietly, like a door nobody was watching. They ate. Eli told a long, complicated story about a dream he'd had involving a shark and a skateboard. Logan nodded in the right places. Arya laughed in the right places, which surprised her because she had not laughed in several weeks. The weeks after the arrests went by the way those weeks always do, which is in a blur of paperwork and news segments and phone calls from people Logan had not spoken to in 10 years, asking if the man in the photograph was really him. He stopped answering the phone. He went back to work at Harlow Construction for exactly 3 shifts, long enough to shake hands with Ronnie at the security desk and to tell Dennis he was going to miss him. And then he handed in his notice. Arya had offered him a job, something in facilities management on an actual salary, and he had turned it down politely because he did not want to be the man who had dated the CEO and gotten a promotion, even if the dating had started fake and the promotion would have been earned. He found work instead at a mid-sized contractor on the south side of town, a day shift, 40 hours, health insurance that covered Eli's asthma medicine without a fight. He picked his son up from school at 3. Every day. For the first time since the funeral. Arya did not come over for 2 weeks. That was her idea. She said she wanted him to have a couple of weeks with his kid in a house that was just theirs, without her in it, so that when she did come over it would be a thing they chose and not a thing that had been forced on them by circumstance. Logan agreed because it was the right call, and because he suspected she was also giving herself 2 weeks to figure out how to be a person who came over to somebody's house for dinner on a Wednesday, instead of a person who was photographed arriving at a gala on a Saturday. She came over on a Wednesday. She brought a bottle of wine Logan could not pronounce. She brought Eli a plastic stegosaurus. Eli told her it was actually an Anatotitan, which Arya had never heard of, and Eli spent the next 40 minutes teaching her about herbivores while Logan put lasagna in the oven. She sat on the floor of the living room in a sweater and socks. No shoes. Eli had a rule about shoes in the house. and a 6-year-old explained the Cretaceous period to her, and she listened as carefully as she had ever listened to a federal prosecutor. After dinner, after Eli was in bed, they sat on the back steps with the wine. It was early spring. There were peepers in the drainage ditch behind the neighbor's house. Logan. Yeah. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Any of it. Be in a house with a kid, eat lasagna on a Wednesday, date a man who does not, I am pretty sure, own a tuxedo. I do not own a tuxedo. I know. I rent. I know you rent. She sipped her wine. She watched a firefly blink twice and go dark. I think I'm going to be bad at this for a while. Probably. Is that okay? Arya, I am a 32-year-old widower with a kid in a truck that still makes the penny sound. I'm going to be bad at this too. We are going to be bad at this together. That's sort of the deal. Okay. Okay. She leaned her head on his shoulder. It was the first time she had touched him in a way that was not a performance for a camera. It was the first time he had been touched that way by anyone in 3 years. He did not move. He did not want to move. A man spends a long enough time alone, and he forgets that the weight of another person against his shoulder is a thing a body remembers even when the mind has tried to forget. They sat like that for a long time. A year went by. Logan would tell the story later, the few times he told it, as if nothing happened during that year, but of course a lot happened. Ethan Whitlock pled out and got 9 years at a federal facility in Pennsylvania. His father got 14. Petr Vukovich got 22 on the 2 killings the Bureau was finally able to nail down. Marcus Harlow retired in May, as planned, and Arya Bennett was officially named CEO of Harlow Construction in a boardroom photograph that ended up on the cover of a business magazine and on the nightstand of her father, who looked at it every morning for the rest of his life. On a Saturday in October, Logan Pierce married Arya Bennett in the living room of a stone house by a lake, with Teresa presiding because she had, it turned out, been ordained online during the pandemic for a friend's wedding, and Darius Ford walking the bride down the hallway because her father's heart was not up to the stairs. Eli was the ring bearer. He wore a suit. He pronounced his words carefully. There were 9 people in the room. No photographers, no magazine covers. Arya was barefoot. She had not worn shoes in that house since the first time she had walked into it in a pair of flats she had bought at a gas station on the way up. The night before the wedding, Eli had climbed into Logan's lap on the porch. Dad. Yeah, bud. Is Arya going to be my mom now? Logan took a long breath. She's going to be your stepmom, bud. Mom is still mom. Mom is always going to be mom. Arya knows that. She's not trying to take that. Okay. Is that okay with you? Eli thought about it. He kicked his feet against the step. Can I call her Arya still? You can call her whatever feels right. I think Arya. Arya it is. Okay. He leaned against his father's chest. Dad. Yeah. I'm glad you went to work that night. What night? The night she had the one shoe. Logan did not know Eli had ever been told about the shoe. He suspected Arya had told him, at some point, over pancakes, as a kind of origin story, the way parents tell children the safe version of how they met. He did not ask. He just put his arm around his son and watched the lake go dark. But if there is a lesson in any of this, and Logan is not a man who believes in lessons, and Arya is not a woman who believes in them either, it is maybe only this. Most of us spend our lives building careful small rooms out of the things we are afraid of, and we tell ourselves those rooms are safety, and they are for a while. But sooner or later something walks through the door. It does not ask permission. It does not care about the locks. The only question is what you do when it gets there. You can slam the door, you can pretend you did not hear it, or you can look at it. Whatever it is, a woman with one shoe, a child with a juice box, a life you did not ask for. And you can decide in that one stupid human second that you are going to let it in. Logan let it in. He did not do it because he was brave. He did not do it because he was hoping. He did it because at midnight, on the 12th floor of a building he mopped for 9 months, a tired man with a kid downstairs was asked a question, and he gave the honest answer instead of the easy one. Everything that came after came from that. The lake was still there. The stone house was still there. A boy with a plastic triceratops slept upstairs. A woman who had once walked into a hallway in a torn coat slept next to a man who had once believed his quiet life was the only thing standing between him and ruin. Neither of them had a quiet life anymore. Neither of them missed it.